Hi everyone, welcome to joining us this afternoon. Our topic today is sweet portions. So we're going to have a little cooking demonstration here shortly by Allie DiNardo and Madison Forrester. So I think that'll be a treat. Hopefully everyone is enjoying the little bit warmer weather and has been able to get out a little bit and maybe do a little bit of yard work. We'll hold our questions to the end, so maybe with Kelly can kind of direct those questions. But Adam and I and Kelly are here, for as long as you'd like to answer any diabetes-related questions, food questions that you may have. And then if you have suggestions for things, cooking demonstrations that you'd like to see in the future or different topics, we're welcome. I know this is still kind of a crazy time, and hopefully we can, maybe late summer and the fall, we might be able to gather again as a group, because I know it's just a little bit nicer to be with everyone, see your faces, whatnot. We will have handouts available after the program that will be forwarded or sent to your email address that was provided. One is called Baking with Sugar Substitutes. I know we often get, even when Adam teach classes, we often get questions as to what sugar substitutes are better to use versus others. There's a handout called The Skinny on Sugar, so it just discusses sugar in general. And then, of course, we'll attach the recipe that we're showing today. Again, here are our presenters, Allie and Madison.
Hi, I'm Allie DiNardo. I'm the Culinary Arts Parapro here at St. Clair County Tech.
And I'm Madison Forrester. I'm a senior at Yale High School, and this is my second year here at Tech.
And today we're going to be making a strawberry pretzel salad using sugar-free ingredients. So to get started, we have all of our ingredients right in front of us, and I'm going to go through and let you know what it is. So we have 2 cups of crushed pretzel, so it's a nice rough crush. It's not fine or anything. We have half of a cup of melted butter. We have 3 teaspoons of sucralose, which is our sugar substitute. We have 8 ounces of sugar-free Cool Whip, 8 ounces of cream cheese, 1 cup of sucralose, 1 quart of sliced strawberries. We have 1 cup of boiling water, 1 cup of cold water, and then we have 2 packets, which are 0.3 ounces each, of sugar-free strawberry Jello. And so to get started, all right, so we're going to start with the pretzel crust layer. So we're going to take the 2 cups of pretzel, the 3 teaspoons of sucralose, and the 1 stick of melted butter, which is also half of a cup, and Mads is going to mix it together in a medium-sized mixing bowl with a rubber spatula. So what we have right here is a 9x13 glass Pyrex baking dish, which we've lightly sprayed with oil. And so once everything's nice and mixed together, we're just going to throw it right to the bottom of our 9x13 and spread it out nice and evenly to make sure it coats the whole bottom. And we're going to put this in a 400-degree oven for 8 to 10 minutes until it's lightly golden brown. You really want to make sure that you don't overcook this right now, because this is the only layer that's getting cooked. You just want it to be nice and light golden, just to make sure that everything holds together. All right, so we're going to go shove this in the oven for just a couple minutes. So we're back. So this just came out of the oven about 20 minutes ago, and it's nice and cooled, and we're just going to set it aside for our cream cheese layer. So in the bowl, in a large mixing bowl, we're going to add 8 ounces of cream cheese. And that's been softened for about 2-3 hours, so it's nice and soft. And now we're going to add 1 cup of sucralose. And we're just going to mix it up until it gets a little fluffy. If your cream cheese isn't softened enough, you can put it in the microwave, or you can put this in a stand mixer and get it mixing a little bit better. All right, so we're back, and here's the super leveled out cream cheese Cool Whip layer. And so now we're going to begin with the Jello layer. So I have the 1 cup of boiling water, and I'm going to take the 0.3 ounces of the sugar-free Jello powder, and I'm going to put them in the boiling water. I'm going to have Mads stir them up until it's dissolved. So the way that I cut my strawberries was I decided to thinly slice them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to layer them all over the leveled out cream cheese layer. You don't have to do slices. You can do chunks, quarters, halves, whatever you want to do. I just wanted to see like layers of strawberry, so I decided to thinly slice them. So I just want to make sure that the whole top is completely covered in the strawberries. And that's a nice even layer. All right. Just like that, okay? All nice and dissolved?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so now we're going to add the 1 cup of cold to the 1 cup of hot, and Mads is going to stir it around just a little bit more. I know that on the back of your Jello containers, it says 1 cup of boiling and 1 cup of cold per 1 container, like 1 box of Jello, but we want to do half as much because we want a thicker layer of Jello so we can do even cuts through it. And so we're just going to spoon it all over the top. Just like that. So I'm going to use my gloved hands. I'm just going to make sure that all the strawberries are pushed down. And there's your finished dessert. So you have to put this in the fridge for about 2 hours for the Jello to set, and then it's perfectly good. This serves about 12 people. And some things I do want to mention is that we bought all of these ingredients at the grocery store. So our sucralose we bought at the store, everything else at our local grocery store. If you wanted to make this a gluten-free, sugar-free dessert, use gluten-free pretzels. And if you're not a fan of strawberries, change it up. What would you put on it?
Kiwi.
Kiwi would be good. What kind of Jello would you use?
Lemon.
Lemon Jello with kiwi. That sounds pretty good. So change it up to whatever you would want. It's a great dessert for summer because you barely have to bake it. But one thing I do want to mention, if you're going to be doing some sugar-free baking, that if your recipe calls for ounces, maybe don't use sucralose because this is 1 ounce of sugar and this is 1 ounce of sucralose. So you can see the difference. This is the same size bowl and they both weigh 1 ounce. So I would highly recommend to use a volume measure when you're baking with sucralose just because it is very different densities. And so if you use weight, it's not going to turn out the same. But I hope you give this recipe a try.
I wanted to make a few comments about the recipe. The original, when thinking of spring, we try to think of something that would be a little bit lighter, so with some fruit and nothing too heavy. So to give you an example, the original recipe for a single serving, remember it made 12 servings, had actually about 52 grams of carbohydrate in it, which would be about 3.5 carbohydrate servings for individuals that are carbohydrate counting. I actually made this recipe at home last weekend to give it a try because I had never had it before. And I used just changing out the sugar-free Jello and keeping regular sugar in the recipe is one way of lowering the total carbohydrate of the recipe. It wouldn't change the total carbohydrate a significant amount, but it would do it a little bit lower. And then if I'm going to hold up this package here, here is the Meyer 0-calorie sugar substitute that was used in this recipe. And by using this, a lot of people saw this bag on my desk this week and they thought they were calorie-free cookies. It was kind of interesting, but in here, you can hear it. This is sugar substitute. And this is 100% sucralose with a little bit of maltodextrin in it. This provides 0 carbohydrates. So by using this in this recipe, and again, the recipe will be available to you, that lowered the carbohydrates significantly to about 23 grams versus the 52 grams. So then a serving of this dessert recipe would only be about 1.5 carbohydrate servings that can help with blood sugar control. But I want to hold up this sugar alternative. Here's Truvia or stevia, where this sucralose is the Splenda. But with this Truvia, there's lots of sugar substitutes on the market, but I'm just bringing this one to the forefront because this one is actually a mixture. It has sugar alcohol in it, regular sugar, and some stevia in it. So because there's sugar alcohols in here and real sugar, this would definitely provide some carbohydrates to that recipe. So, it just shows you with cooking, you can make the regular version of something and count it for its full amount. And then you would just need to substitute or maybe you'll eliminate some certain foods from that meal to compensate for the regular dessert. You may use something like this, which still has some real sugar in it. It's going to lower the carbohydrate amount. And then there's using 100% sugar substitute. Now, sucralose, the Splenda here, Splenda and Truvia are probably the best for baking. The sucralose or the Splenda by itself may not provide the best browning, where the Truvia would. But again, it's the stevia and the Splenda are probably the better ones to use for baking, where the aspartame, the equal, you would not want to use in baking because it actually can become bitter with heat. Now, it's funny, Madison mentioned I think she mentioned kiwi and maybe a lime or lemon gelatin. Well, if anyone, it might be that Madison's just not old enough yet. But for us who have made Jello many years, some fruits, and kiwi would be example, pineapple, papaya, because those fruit have certain enzymes in them, the Jello would never set because it breaks down, it prevents the Jello, it prevents those proteins from coming together. So you would probably just have a liquid mess on your hand. So if you want to use pineapple in a Jello recipe, if you use canned pineapple, that will work because canned pineapple has been heated and that heat breaks down that enzyme that's in the natural fruit and then the gelatin will set. Now, kiwi, I'm not sure what temperature you would actually have to put that kiwi to, and the kiwi might disintegrate if it was heated. So if you want to use kiwi, maybe you could just put it on fresh at the end rather than mixing it in with the Jello because it would inhibit the Jello from forming. So again, you could use the regular recipe. But we're not going to post the regular recipe, but it is available, I'm sure, in some cookbooks or whatnot. That would have about 52 grams of carb in it per serving or 3.5 carbohydrate servings. This recipe, we use the 0-calorie sweetener from Meyer. So it's cup for cup, just like sugar, but this provides 0 carbohydrate to the recipe. So by using this, we were able to get that carbohydrate content down to about 23 grams total because the pretzels and whatnot still count as a little bit. So 1.5 carbohydrate servings versus the 3.5. If you don't want to go totally sugar with a sugar-free alternative such as the sucralose, there's lots of blends on the market. This just happens to be Truvia. Again, I'm holding this up again because I don't think everyone saw it the first time I held it up. But this has a sugar alcohol in it. It has a little bit of real sugar and it has stevia in it. So it's a mixture of 3. And that's often what you'll see in the market. A lot of sugar substitutes are often a blend versus just being aspartame or just being sucralose. But this one is an example of just the sucralose. And the Splenda and the stevia are probably the better two to use for baking. And the stevia would probably, like this one, if that recipe had been cooked, like the end stage of it had been cooked, this would have provided better browning. Where the sucralose by itself, like if you were making a cake, which of course you're probably going to cover that cake, but the cake wouldn't have a very brown top to it when you pulled it out of the oven. Okay. Are there any questions, whether it be food related or just anything about diabetes in your care that we can help you with this afternoon? And we'll see if we can get Kelly to try and field the questions as they come in. We haven't done too many of these programs, so we're still learning. But if you have, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you have any suggestions or things that you'd like to see that we could provide to you, hopefully it won't be too much longer where we can get together in person once again, because I think it was fun when you guys were able to come for lunch and it was more relaxed atmosphere. So hopefully those days aren't too far away.
Laura, can you talk about some natural substitutes for sugar in recipes? Because I think sometimes we think, well, if we add something natural, that can make it healthier, which I think it might be.
Yes.
What
Okay.
about the calories and carbohydrates?
Okay. So good question. The question is, are there other natural sugars that we could use in some of these recipes? And there are. And one of the handouts that we're going to have available to you is titled Baking with Sugar Substitutes. But in there, it lists alternatives that you could use. So I'll just list off a few just for information. But again, it will be on this handout for you. So just to give you an idea, a cup of regular, just granulated white sugar has close to 775 calories in it and about 200 grams of carbohydrate, I believe. No, check my notes. Yeah, 200 grams of carbohydrate. Now, if you want to substitute agave nectar, I often use that as an example in class. You are welcome to use agave nectar, but remember it is still a source of sugar. It's still considered a source of carbohydrate. So in a recipe that calls for a cup of sugar, real sugar, 3/4 cup of agave syrup could be used in its place. That has a few less calories. It's still 720 calories and about 192 grams of carbohydrate. Another substitution would be a cup of coconut sugar. I know coconut milk and coconut water and coconut sugar was popular there for quite a bit. But a cup of that sugar has 723 calories and also has 192 grams of carbohydrate. If you wanted to use honey, 3/4 cup of honey would be comparable in sweetness to a cup of real sugar. That has 765 grams of calories and about 208 grams of carbohydrate. So it actually has more carbohydrate in it than sugar, but remember it's only 3/4 of a cup. And then maple syrup, that could also be used as an alternative. 3/4 of a cup compared to a cup of sugar has about 161 grams of carbohydrate and 626 calories. So there are alternatives that you can use. They still provide carbohydrates though to the recipe. And even though, for example, the agave syrup is suggesting 3/4 of a cup to be comparable to that cup of sugar, there's no reason why you couldn't use less of either. Most recipes, the sugar, whether it be real or agave syrup or honey, can be lessened in the recipe. And that just kind of comes with tweaking and baking on your own and finding out what works and doesn't work. I know I kind of do a lot of tweaking sometimes with my salad dressing. I like a lot of lemon in my salad dressing. So when my son's away at school, I put more lemon in it. But Adam doesn't like lemon. My son's not a lemon fan. So when he's home, I ease up on the lemon a little bit because I like homemade salad dressings quite a bit. How many grams of carbohydrate can I have in a day? That's kind of a loaded question because it varies per person. Exercise and activity plays a part of this. And then your own personal desire has a big impact or a big decision on how many carbohydrate servings or grams that you can have in a day. When I meet someone for the first time and maybe I haven't been able to speak to them before the appointment for numerous reasons, but I always try to make a meal plan that we're about 45% of the total calories is coming from carbohydrate. We can certainly go lower than that. A low carbohydrate diet can mean that only about 26% of the total calories are coming from carbohydrate, which could be anywhere from, to give an example, 120 grams to 200 plus grams per day. And again, it varies for men and women. A keto diet would only be about 45 grams of carbohydrate, sometimes less, 30 to 45 grams per day. If this is something, though, that you're considering and doing before meeting with your doctor, we strongly encourage you to meet with your doctor ahead of time because if someone is on a keto diet, their diabetes medications would need to be adjusted. If they're not adjusted, that individual is at great risk of having hypoglycemic events quite frequently. We just experienced that a little bit ago. So anytime you go very low carb or keto, your medications need to be adjusted accordingly. And we can go, as low carb as you want, as long as we can try to have your diet balanced. So the recommendation that you must have 200 grams per day, or you must have 150 grams per day, that is old school. We just want everyone to be safe and be healthy, though, at the same time. Another thing that I would strongly encourage, because I know over the past year, intermittent fasting has been a big topic of discussion. And again, if this is something that you're considering, I strongly encourage that you talk with your endocrinologist about this, your diabetes specialist. Intermittent fasting can mean that someone fasts twice a week, 3 times a week. It could be every other day, or it could be daily for a certain set of hours per day. But again, the physician would need to work with you very, very closely, because you would need to know how to change your medications, particularly on the days that you're fasting. So, okay. Any other questions we can help you with? Again, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. Okay, all right. We appreciate everyone attending. If there's something you'd like to see in the future before you close this, you're welcome to send it. You're welcome to call us. Reach us however you'd like. Our number is 810-989-3362. And again, hopefully we can see everyone soon in person. Okay, thank you.
We do have a question.
Okay, there's one.
What do you recommend for lower carb bread?
And again, it's kind of like sugar and
Repeat the question.
okay. The question is, what do I think about lower carb bread, or what particular brands are available out there? And I'm sorry, I don't know exact brands without being at the supermarket, but Less Bread, and I don't think that's the exact name, but Less Bread usually has half the calorie amount and the carbohydrate amount. So a standard slice of bread has about 80 calories or 15 grams of carbohydrate, whether it be white or whole wheat. But we know there's larger loaves that are available on the market. There's smaller loaves. There's Less Bread, which I would consider usually it has half the calories of a slice of regular bread. So it'd only be about 40, 45 calories, and therefore half the carbohydrate amount. So 7 grams, 7.5 grams. So that in that case, 2 slices of Less Bread or lower calorie bread could be used. That would only count as 1 carbohydrate serving. And, I know at the markets, we've all seen the less hamburger buns or the sandwich, where they're flatter in nature. There's just less carbohydrate, so they can count as less in our total carbohydrate for the day, because it is about that carbohydrate content. If we can have just a healthy amount in our diet and stay as physically active as we can, and when we do have those carbohydrate sources, if we can have the whole wheat products, the non-starchy vegetables, and the fresh fruits, those would certainly be our healthier options. Desserts, they're allowed, and you can fit them in your meal plan. And, this recipe today would be 1.5 carbohydrate servings versus the 3.5 for the regular recipe. But whether you want to use the regular and count it for 3.5, or again, this is like the Less Bread. It just has less carb in it, and it's only 1.5 carbohydrate servings. So thank you.